Hello, hello, hello. Howdy, everyone. Hope everyone is well. Welcome to the official Launchbox Twitch channel. How's everyone doing? Hello, everyone. Good to see some familiar names in the chat. Focusborg, hello again. Deploid, Dark DMark. Hope I said that right. My chat is very far away from my eyes. Hope everyone is doing well. My name is Astrobob, the community manager here at Launchbox. Welcome to our stream. Today we are covering everything Big Box. We're going to be setting up Big Box, configuring it, going very, very deep on customization and workflows to give you the all-in-one ultimate launching experience. I hope everyone is excited. It's going to be a fun little stream today. But where are we joining from? I know I see some familiar faces, but let us know where you're joining from. Let us know what you're playing these days. And hope everyone had a good Halloween, which was the last time I was on the stream. We did a nice little Halloween stream talking about some spooky games. Joining from Denmark. Crikey, thank you for joining. I know it's late there. I'm not sure if it's gotten a little bit better since the time change. Chile, Germany, wow. All our Europeans staying up late. Well, we really appreciate that. We're going to give it a few minutes for folks to mosey on in before we get started. But come on in, grab a drink, grab a snack, get comfy, and say hi in the chat. Let us know what you've been playing. I personally have been finishing up Sonic X Shadow Generations. Big Sonic fan here. Been enjoying that one a lot. Almost done with that. About to get started on a little oldie over on Retro Achievements. It's actually a really good place to find some new games. If you go over to their website, you can see the new sets and revisions that they've just released. And I was very excited to see this little bad boy pop up, which is, if I scroll down a little bit, Star Fox Adventures. So this is next up on my list. I haven't played this since it came out. Questionable game by some people's opinion, but a good oldie in my personal opinion. So I'm very excited to get stuck into this. It's got some great little achievements along there with it. And Focusborg is in Dubai at the moment. These days doing Dragon Age. Yes, Dragon Age I hear is doing very well. Heard some very good things about that. Hello from Los Angeles, California. And yes, Black Ops 6. Some very good releases coming out this month. And of course Hogwarts. And more trophies in Spider-Man 2. Yes, for anyone who didn't know, Spider-Man 2 is coming to PC. I'm personally very, very excited about that. Coming out end of January, I believe. That is absolutely on my playlist. I do have Hogwarts as well, but I think I'm only about 15% through, and I really need to get back to that game. I did enjoy it. But yes, of course, for the retro games, sort of all over the place. Definitely plenty to choose from. And Focusborg says, yes, every single port of Misc. Fantastic. 2 ports left. Yes, there are certain games where I will absolutely go through all of the versions. I think I tend to do that with puzzle games a lot, just because there isn't too much different between them, but it's just more excuses to complete them. I think I've completed pretty much every version of Dr. Mario and Tetris Attack. Those were my... or Panel de Pon if you're in Japan. Those are my go-to puzzle games. Playing on PS5 Pro. Yes, of course. PS5 Pro came out this month as well. If anyone has any good reviews about that, let us know. Definitely a little contentious with the price point, but for those who appreciate the extra power, I'm sure it's well worth it. Okay, well... thanks for coming. As I said, my name is Astrobob, the community manager here at Launchbox, and today we are all about Big Box. We are going to have a look at Big Box. We're going to set it up. We're going to go really deep on the workflow and customization side of Big Box. So whether you're a Big Box power user, whether you're on the fence, about using Big Box, whether you've never even heard of it, this stream will be for you. We've got some really fun use cases, some really fun tutorials and things to show you regarding Big Box. So get comfy. We're just going to quickly go through what's been happening over on the Launchbox side before we jump in, and we'll let people come on in, and then we'll get started. And yes, every version of Doom, definitely the one that probably has the most ports on different systems. You really can't go wrong with a bunch of those. Okay, so can you believe it? We're halfway through November already, nearly towards the end of the year. We had a really fun October. This is our community roundup post, if anyone hasn't seen this. Just kind of highlights some things that we've been working on, but more so than what the Launchbox team has been doing. It's actually been a very busy month for sort of contributions in the community. So we have some updates here. You know, we released out 13.17, a bit of a smaller release focusing on stability and bug fixes. We had a nice little tutorial about the Storefront Manager, which has some nuggets of information if you haven't checked this out. I personally also learned something from this, even though it seems like a relatively simple workflow, but definitely have a look through there. And then we had our Halloween stream, which was a lot of fun. Myself and product manager Fayren were chatting about spooky games, and we had a sort of open Launchbox discussion about various topics. Definitely nerded out on the more specifics of managing your library. So if that's your thing, definitely have a look. But underneath this, we have a whole bunch of really amazing community contributions as well. Just things that we found from across the realm of the internet, different people's submissions to types of Launchbox setups. People have been submitting themes and their own current builds. I personally really love seeing these, like when people submit their personal builds. It's fantastic to see how sort of other people have set things up, and you always sort of learn something new along the way. This one was particularly interesting from ever wanted to play your Launchbox games physically by scanning them? Well, this plugin might be for you. You use NFC tags on your games. You could scan them in to get that going if that's your thing. Very cool stuff. And yes, if you're not on the forums, or if you haven't used it before, there is a bunch of good information on here. We tried to sort of cross-post across things like Discord if that's where you're more active. But yeah, you can certainly check out the sort of activity streams for what's going on. And then, of course, you can browse the various sections here as well. Definitely a place for sort of getting help, but especially when it comes to downloads and sort of plugins, can be very nice to sort of stay on top with what's happening here. And we're actually going to look at that today because, of course, Big Box has a whole bunch of theming and sort of customization that you can grab from the forums. So we're actually going to show you how to do that. Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. And don't forget, the last thing is that, of course, as with all of our streams, we are hosting a license giveaway towards the end. If you don't have a license for Launchbox for Windows or Android yet, this could be your lucky day. We're going to be drawing a random winner to go away with a license of either of those two platforms. So stick around, get comfy, and we will jump in. As always, any questions along the way, feel free to jump into the chat. I will be keeping an eye on it, and we can, of course, deviate depending on what folks want to see. But just to give you an idea, today is all focused on Big Box. We are specifically looking at the Big Box app, which is the complementary application to Launchbox that is designed for a sort of controller-friendly or sort of TV-friendly front end. Launchbox is the sort of powerful PC-based library manager that you would use at your PC to sort of really set things up and get things going. But when you actually want to play your games and just sit back and enjoy all the hard work that you've done setting that up, Big Box is definitely the way to go. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Big Box. If anyone is not familiar with Big Box or has not used it, definitely let us know in the chat. Very curious to see if there's any Launchbox newer faces with us. Big Box newer faces. But even if you are using it, like I said, this is definitely going to be the stream for you. We are covering some deep customization and things that you may not have known is possible with Big Box. Fantastic. So Zepfloyd says, haven't used it. Well, absolutely fantastic. So let's get started then. I'm actually in Launchbox, and I'm using the free version right now. At the top, I don't have a license installed. Now, in 13.16, we actually introduced the ability to have a big box trial. So big box, really simply, is lives as a separate application within the Launchbox directory, which you can launch separately. But of course, you can also access it within Launchbox by going to the top left Launchbox icon and Big Box. Now, because I'm on the free version, it says it's only available with Premium, and that is the main draw of Launchbox Premium is access to Big Box. So this isn't something that you can do on the free version, but what you can do is you can start a trial on the free version. This was introduced in 13.16, and this gives you full functionality to Big Box, except for the main two things that you can't do is you can't launch games and you can't change themes. And the use case for this is so that you can experience sort of the customization and what Big Box looks like, how it sort of runs, what you can do with it, for a 30-minute window whenever you launch it. And then, of course, if it's for you and if you do end up going for Premium, or, of course, maybe today you might win a license for Premium, then you can easily sort of make that upgrade from there. Okay, so let's just... we're off to a good start already. Let me just quickly kill this and try that again. Exactly. Definitely some hiccups along the way. It wouldn't be a live stream if there weren't hiccups along the way. So if you're a free user, this is what you'll see when you open Big Box for the first time. So it says your 30-minute trial is about to begin, launching, and themes are on hold, but everything else you can experience. So you can experience the entire sort of setup suite, everything that we're configuring and doing today, you can follow along with, you can see how it's going to work with your library. Because, of course, the main thing with Big Box is it's only as good as the games and the media and metadata that's in your library, right? So, of course, what I'm showing today is going to look different for your own library, and it's also dependent on the themes and how you've set it up on your end. But essentially, everything else is exactly the same. You can look through your Game Discovery Center, for example. You can look at different playlists. You can access all of the options. You can see everything that you would with normal Big Box. The only difference is that if you were to go to try and play a game, it says, hey, the full power of Big Box is behind Premium. So what we're going to do, we're just going to back out of here, and I'm just going to pop my license in to give us a full build, and then we'll go back from there. We're actually going to go back into Launchbox because there's a couple of things I just want to do first. Oh, fantastic. Focusborg, I saw the post on Discord about the Doom mods. I didn't realize that was you, but it looked very, very interesting. Getting all sorts of things in there in Launchbox. So good job with that. Okay, so we're back into Launchbox. Now, there's a couple of things we're just going to do before we get started. Now, with Big Box, it is dependent, of course, the more media you have, depending on the theme that you're using, the better it's going to look. So what I would say, if you're thinking of diving into Big Box, the bare minimum of the media that I would recommend is you want to have a box front, you want to have a clear logo, a background, and at least one screenshot. So if I edit this game here, which is Aladdin, so I have a box front. I also have a box back. This is also highly recommended if you like looking at 3D boxes. I have a spine to sort of complete that 3D box, a cartridge, which can look very nice in certain themes, a clear logo, and a fan art background. This is what I'm using for my background, and I have just one screenshot. So those 4 items that I mentioned are certainly recommended. The other recommended type is videos. Now, videos can be, it's a personal preference. Not all themes need them. So, for example, the default theme will be quite happy without them. However, a lot of the custom and community-made themes do kind of assume that you are using videos. Of course, it will fall back onto screenshots if you're not. But it definitely can take it to that next level if you do have videos with all of your games. And of course, with videos, so what we're going to do before we jump into Big Box, we're going to quickly hop over to this view here, which is Games Missing Media. This is a really nice view to help me see which games don't have specific media types. Okay, so I have all of my games have boxes. Some of my games are missing cartridges. And also some of my games are missing videos, but that's fine. What I can do if I wanted to quickly just update this media before I jump into Big Box is I could highlight this. I could go to Tools and download Update Media and Metadata. We're not going to dive too deep into this because we've covered this in previous streams, but essentially I'm going to go through and I'm going to make sure that I'm going to try and grab some videos from MU Movies. And let's just do that for this select series of games, not too many that are missing videos there, so we'll see if it grabs any. Someone says, can I transfer my configuration to my PC? I have this on my Legion Go. So, first of all, props to another Legion Go fan. I am also a Legion Go user. In fact, it's what I'm using right now. Got my little detached controllers here because we're going to do some fun controller stuff later on. If you're referring to, I might need clarification on which configuration you're talking about, but if it's talking about Launchbox in general, Launchbox is designed to be portable, so assuming you have your games emulators within the Launchbox directory, it is easy to move that directory to an entirely different PC and everything should work exactly the same. It sounds like you guys may have been chatting about another type of configuration, but thanks for clarifying that. Okay, so now we're actually going to go ahead and jump into Big Box. And we are going to... So this is where we're going to spend most of the time today. Okay, I'm just going to mute the audio here for now. Okay, so we're now ready to fully get started with Big Box. We've got all of my games imported. We've got all of the media that I want for now with Launchbox, and now I can really go ahead and get started. So by default, when you load up Big Box, it'll probably land on this page here, which is what we call the Game Discovery Center. Now, this is relatively new in comparison to Big Box, and it's a really nice view for sort of that Netflix style deciding what do I want to do next. So at the top it shows you highly recommended games. It's using that media, so the logo and the background, to really kind of show off some lovely media of these games. You can of course flip through those. I've got things like continue playing, so games that I played recently added. It gives me access to all of the platforms that I have in Launchbox. And underneath that is it will start to show you sort of dynamically generated playlists. So this is a mixture of sort of automatically generated playlists, but also community generated playlists. So we added the ability a few versions back for the Launchbox team to sort of curate and manage playlists. We've talked about this in the past. And we've actually created some of those dynamic playlists on a month-by-month basis. So the idea is that every time you go in here, there will be something new to find. There should be something new to sort of play. It helps you really kind of narrow down on your specific library. So here, for example, is a community playlist, which is back from in August when we had our 11th birthday celebration. So this was actually sourced by the community itself as the sort of top picks from the Launchbox community. This was another playlist from last month, which is the spooky games for October. So this was specifically to celebrate sort of Halloween. And as of this month, we have a new discovery playlist, which is focusing on sort of harvest time. So cozy games to do with farming, sort of collecting, things like that. Maybe we'll see it pop up here in a little bit. But it sort of shows you games based on various generations, things that you've liked, things that you've played in the past. And I just love the sort of combination of the logo and the background, and it looks really nice. It says, will you have a version of this feature for desktop? So that's a really good question, and we actually hear this a lot, which is people love this view, but of course it is exclusive to Big Box. There isn't sort of an equivalent in Launchbox at the moment. There isn't anything we're sort of immediately working on that is using this in Launchbox. Of course, the fundamentals of what it's showing can be replicated in the Launchbox desktop app in terms of the playlists, but I realize what you're probably referring to is just the ease of use and the sort of niceness of having this big full screen media front and center. Definitely designed for big box, but certainly not out of the realm of possibilities to sort of have something similar to this in the future. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly talk you through what we call the various sections in Big Box. So, like I said, when you launch Big Box by default, it will go to the Game Discovery Center. You can change that, and I'm going to show you in a second. If you press Escape, this is where you get access to the System menu. So this is where you essentially have access to all of your options and sort of different views. Now, it can be confusing because these are sort of all bundled together, but I am going to talk you through each one, and I'm going to show you how, once you sort of have an idea of where things are, and we're going to set up some keyboard shortcuts as well, then it can become much easier to navigate. So, for example, I've got the Game Discovery Center, which is where I just was, but underneath that, I have a whole bunch of other sections. So we refer to these as sections. So, for example, I could look at all games if I wanted. This is just a big list of all of the games in my library. I could look at platforms or platform categories, so very familiar views from Launchbox. So, for example, if I just want to see a list of all of my platforms, I can then, of course, dive into one, and then I've got access to all of my games. Now, underneath that, we have various different types of sections. So, for example, if you want to view your games by developers or series, for example, ratings, play modes, you've got a whole bunch of options here. And think of this as the sort of filters within Launchbox. If you were to go and filter your library based on, say, developers, that's what these sections are for. So let's say go view developers. And then I've got all of my games categorized by the developers, which is pulled from the database. Exactly. So Focusborg, yes, of course. So the idea of Big Box is to kind of sit back with a controller, and the user interface has been designed in a way that can easily be navigated with a controller, whereas of course the Launchbox desktop app is more for mouse and keyboard sitting at your desk where you really want to get deep into the configuration. Okay, so that is the core of how you sort of navigate around Big Box. You have these different sections, and you can sort of jump between them. We're going to make the process of jumping between them much easier because right now all we're doing is we're going into a section, we're hitting escape or hitting back on your controller. It's taking us to the menu, and then we're going to go and navigate to another section. We can actually make this process a whole lot easier, so we're going to show you how to do that. But firstly, we're going to show you how do I change the default section that shows up when I open Big Box. We get this question quite a lot, which is if you came from an older build and you upgraded, you might have a different section set as your default. So you might think, well, how can I get the Game Discovery Center to be my default? Or, for example, if you don't want that, if you want, say, platform categories as your default when you launch Big Box, that is under Options, which is where most of the stuff is going to be located. It's under Views and under Default Startup View. So you have things like Game Discovery Center, you could choose platform categories, and then you've got all of these other sections that we just looked at previously. Pretty straightforward. I'm going to leave this at the Game Discovery Center because that is my favorite view to use, and that is what is going to happen when I launch Big Box. So to make things a whole lot easier, we're going to be jumping around a whole bunch of different sections today. What I would highly recommend is setting up keyboard shortcuts or controller shortcuts. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to Options, and then right at the bottom, you've got controller and controller mappings and keyboard mappings. Now, I'm going to use keyboard today just because I'm sat at a desk, but of course you can map all of the same things with a controller. Now, a lot of these are sort of pre-mapped for you. One of the things that I would highly recommend mapping is the different views that you use within Big Box. So, for example, show Discovery Center, show platforms, show platform categories. These are the views that I personally use a lot in Big Box. And if you map them to a sort of button, then you can easily jump between them. So I've mapped these to basically 1, 2, 3, 4 on my keyboard, which means wherever I am, I can hit that and I can just go to my different sections in Big Box. So I can look at platforms, I can look at categories, I I can look at genres, or I can just jump back to the Game Discovery Center. Now, you can also do this on a controller. So for our Legion Go users, I've got my controllers here. And what's really nice about this is you can map not just a button, but a button combination. So if I go to controller mappings, and let's go to show Discovery Center, what I want to do on my controller is I'm going to say when I press the Y button plus a direction on the D-pad, I want it to go to that view. So I'm going to press Y plus up, and you'll see how it's got button 4 plus D-pad up. So you can use a button combination to actually jump between different views. So I'm going to say, platform categories is Y plus left. I'm going to say genres is Y plus right. And then let's say play modes is Y plus down. And so now with a controller, if I just press Y and up, it goes to the Game Discovery Center, Y plus left, platform categories, and so on and so forth. So really highly recommend mapping these views to whether it's a controller, whether it's keyboard and mouse, but this will let you really quickly jump between your various views, your various sections in Big Box. Okay. I've also mapped a couple of other things in keyboard mappings. I've mapped a quick access to my options because that's what we're going to be using a lot today. I would highly recommend mapping buttons for switching views and switching themes. This is going to come into play later on, but this is very, I didn't realize this for a long time. And you can, of course, back out to the options and you can switch views. But if you map shortcuts to these items, it becomes very, very quick and easy to quickly switch out views and themes on the fly. I've also mapped out search and filter because that's something I use quite a lot. Attract mode, which we're going to cover later on as well. So, of course, a lot of these are self-explanatory. We're not going to go through everything, but definitely look at keyboard mappings and controller mappings because this is going to help you elevate that Big Box experience, especially when you're at a TV with a controller. You don't have access to a keyboard and mouse. You're going to want to set up some of these shortcuts so you can quickly jump around Big Box if you want. Of course, most of the default functionality, such as just navigating through menus, will be enough. But if you like to sort of view Big Box in different ways, this can be a really powerful way of doing that. Okay, thanks for that. Helpful tips. Glad you liked that and good to see you again. It's always nice to see you regulars here. So the final thing, if you are using a controller, is under the controller option, you have obviously enable game controllers, but this one is quite useful, which is use all controllers. Now this is really useful if you have multiple controllers hooked up to your system. So let's say, for example, you've got an arcade stick, you've got a controller, maybe we've even got some other sort of rhythm-based controller. If you turn on this option, that is going to allow all of the controllers to navigate the menus within Big Box. Whereas if you have that turned off, only the controller and the device that you specified here is going to be the one that is navigating Big Box. Keyboard and mouse will always work, but of course the idea is that you're away from a desk, you're in a sort of controller-friendly environment, and so this can be quite useful if you've got multiple controllers and you want them to manage the interface of Big Box at the same time. So we have a question here which is, how do you configure a controller to use in Big Box? Times where I try using a different controller to play and it just doesn't work. So I'm asking when you're specifically in gameplay. So in terms of Big Box itself and the actual navigation within Big Box, that is all configured under this controller mappings. So that's where you define your inputs. This is a sort of single input, so sometimes we have issues where if you have multiple controllers that have different layouts, so for example, a Nintendo Switch controller and an Xbox controller, the buttons that you map here, they're not going to directly relate because they have things like A and B switched. This is mappings for sort of one controller, but this is the option that lets you sort of allows those controllers to control Big Box. When you're talking about within gameplay, that is specifically configured by the emulator itself. So the controller mappings that we're talking about here, this is only for navigating the Big Box interface. As soon as you get out of Big Box and you actually get into a game, all of the controller mappings will be covered by the emulator itself. So if there are issues with that, you'll want to just check the controller configuration of the emulator that you're using. Yep, 8-bit DOE is a good choice for a controller. Ran into problems. Let us know what those problems are. We'll see if we can hunt that down for you. Okay, so now that we've got some shortcuts set, we're ready to really start jumping around Big Box and looking at the various types of sections. So I'm going to go to my All Games section. Now, depending on the view that you're in, if I was to hit left on my controller, you can see how this alphanumeric menu popped up at the top here. So this is really nice if I want to narrow things down by letter. Let's say I've got a really big library, or even for a specific platform. I can very quickly go and navigate based on a specific letter. Now, you probably can't see it very well on stream, but in the left there are two little icons, which is a magnifying glass and a little sort of hamburger icon. This is search and filter. So likewise, if I hit the search option, I can search for a very specific game, which is pretty self-explanatory. So Kirby, and now it's showing me all of my Kirby games. I'm going to hit back. Likewise, I have access to the filter option, and this is very similar to filtering within Launchbox itself. So you want to say, what do I want to filter on? Well, I want to show games where favorite is true, and then hit apply. And there we go. It's a sort of controller-friendly way of accessing the search and filters from within Big Box. If you're on a sort of handheld device like the ROG Ally or the Legion Go, when you search, it should pop up the on-screen keyboard, so you can easily sort of tap in a game that you're looking for. So I've mapped keyboard shortcuts to both of these commands. So wherever I'm in Big Box, if I do S, which is my shortcut, and we were just talking about Star Fox Adventures. So let's search for Star Fox. And there we go. Very, very quickly able to access those different games. Likewise, if I was in the platform categories view and let's go into a specific platform. Let's go into Dreamcast, for example, and then I can actually filter by going up here. I want to filter for, let's just see what my favorite Dreamcast games are. And there we go. Now, one quick tip on this. If you are using a controller, when you map certain functions, they will actually show up on the display. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to Options. I'm going to go to Controller, Mappings, and I'm going to map Search and Filter to the left and right triggers on my controller. So I'm going to do Search on my Legion controllers here. I'm going to do left trigger, and I'm going to do Filter, and I'm going to do right trigger. Now we're going to go back and save. And you can actually see in the bottom left, see how this new option popped up? So it's saying A is select, B is back, LT is search. So this is certain functions will actually show up depending on the mappings that you have. So now, if I'm in a specific section, I can just press left trigger. I can, if I was on a handheld device, I could use the on-screen keyboard to just punch in a game that I'm looking for. So let's say Sonic, for example. And there we go. It's a nice way to sort of remember those mappings, because sometimes it can be tricky to remember what you've actually mapped. Fantastic. Sounds like some folks didn't know that. I also wasn't aware of that. I'm not sure exactly which functions you'll notice. So, for example, the filter, it doesn't show a button mapping for the filter. So I do think it depends on the function that you're using. But it certainly can be useful to keep track of what controller mappings you have. Okay. So I think we're pretty much done with how do we sort of narrow down and search for the games that we want to play. So we can jump between our different views. We can search, we can filter. The final thing that I want to do is let's go into consoles, and let's just go to Sega Saturn, for example. Now, I'm using a controller here, so we can go into a game. Now, by default, controllers will have a really nice function, which is the right analog stick is automatically mapped to spin the box. Ooh, we've done this in the past. Never gets old, but you can spin the 3D box. If you were to go into the game and go to view 3D model, that will give us a nice full screen box. Whoa! Never gets tired of spinning the box around. So that is automatically mapped to the right analog stick. If you're on keyboard, there are other shortcuts that will do that. For example, F will sort of flip the box around for you if you don't have a controller handy. But this is really nice. Now, this really comes into play when we start looking at views. So So I've mentioned views a few times, and this is where you can really start customizing Big Box to your liking. So no worries if you showed up a bit late. We're only just getting started. We've only just touched the surface of what is here in Big Box. So welcome to the stream, but we've got a lot more to do. So, like I said, we've got our various sections here: Game Discovery Center, platforms, platform categories. So you can choose however you want to view your games. But within those categories, we have what we call views. And this is why I said it's good to map views to a shortcut, because you can very quickly switch between them and you can actually see what they look like. Now, you can, of course, go to options, you can go to views, and then you can say, well, for the platform list view, I want to use this view. For the games list view, I want to use this view. But that's not very intuitive because it doesn't actually show you what the results are. If you map views to a shortcut, now I can switch this out on the fly. So for example, let's go to platforms. Now I'm using the default theme here in Big Box, and I can very quickly switch this view. So right now it's using what's called Platform Wheel 2. If I was to change this to Platform Wheel 1, it's going to update on the fly, and that change is going to stick. So it's not like a temporary thing, you're actually changing that view. Likewise, if you wanted to change this to text list with details, you can absolutely do that on the fly. So we're going to do this nice horizontal view, and then we're going to go into a platform. So we're going to go into N64, for example. So I've got this vertically scrolling list of logos, but if I don't want that, I'm going to hit my view shortcut again, and now I've got a whole bunch of options. You've got vertical wheels, you've got horizontal wheels, you've got wall views. I personally love wall views. This is what I use in my own build, which is just a nice wall of boxes. Different wall views will have different bits of information. So for example, this one here will actually show you metadata and a video alongside the wall view. Whereas if you want like a full screen wall view, that's what the other one was. Vertical wheels is what we had, but cover flow is really nice. So cover flow with details, this is where the boxes come into play, and that little shortcut I showed you of spinning the box around actually works in cover flow as well. So you can do that. If I want to change that to full screen cover flow, we can go even bigger. Well, hey, little uneasy on the eyes, but if I wanted to have a look at all those lovely boxes with the lovely box art, I can spin that around. Because hey, who wants to play games when you can play the game of spin the box? Look at that. So there are two main kind of sections that have different views in Big Box. The first one is the platform view. So when you're looking through your various platforms. And then the second is when you're looking through the actual games themselves. So this also depends on the theme that you're using. Not all of these will be available, and you may actually have different ones available depending on the theme. I'm using the default, and that's why I have these options here. You'll notice, for example, that the Game Discovery Center does not have any views that you can change to. And that's because this is a specifically designed experience that looks like this, whereas platforms and the actual game details list will have various views that you can use. Now, of course, these will look completely different depending on the theme that you're using. And themes is something that we're going to cover in a lot more detail later on as well. So think of it, I would say the four main sections in Big Box is going to be the Game Discovery Center. You've got the platform view, platform sections, where you're looking for your various platforms. You've got the actual game views, all of your games. And then you've got the sort of additional sections that we looked at where it's just a list. So for example, if I go to, let's say genres, for example, this is just a list of genres. Now, you'll notice that I can't actually change the view here. There is no other view. And that's because these are sort of dynamically generated. They don't have sort of media associated with them. Whereas platforms and games, they have like a clear logo, which is why you can sort of change those views around. So it's just to be aware that depending on the section that you're in, you will have different viewing options there. Okay? Now, the final thing we're going to look at is if I go into, let's look at platforms. So let's take Nintendo Entertainment System. Let's change the view to cover flow with details. And now, if I was to go to another platform, say Super Nintendo, that platform is also using cover flow with details. Now that's fine for most use cases, but if you wanted to change that, of course you can change that. It's Launchbox here. You can go to Options, you can go to Views, and then there's an option here called Separate View for each platform. And with that on, what that is going to do, let's go back to Nintendo. Let's say, for example, for NES, I'm quite happy to have cover flow with details, but then for Super Nintendo, let's say I've got more games, I actually want to utilize a wall view. And now these two views are going to be separate depending on the platform. So if I go back, well, hey, let's pretend that didn't happen. We go back to, probably going to need to reboot at this point. Let's do that. It was just too much to handle. We have a question here that says, when I have more than 2 cores to launch a game, why wouldn't both show for me as an option for starting the game? That is a good question. We're going to look at launching options and how you configure those a little bit later on. So let me make a note of that and we'll make sure we try and come back to that. But I broke it. I broke Big Box. Very sorry about that. But here we go. We're back in NES, which is my cover flow view, and now Super Nintendo utilizes the separate wall view, which is fantastic. So that is a personal choice. Personally, I say with the default view, probably not very useful. However, this is very common in community themes because they tend to have very, very specific views for individual platforms. We'll look at some use cases of that later. So for now, I'm just going to turn that back off. I want to retain the same view across the board. Okay, so we've talked a lot about views and how we sort of view this information. What we're going to look at is the actual games themselves, because that's what we're here for. So any game that you select in Big Box, you have this game details page here. So it'll show me some media, it will show me my video, and then I've got all of these options here. Now, these are the same options as within Launchbox. So for example, if you have a different emulator set up, you can say launch with, and you can have that emulator set up there. You can access to things like star ratings, achievements. You can actually view the manual straight from Big Box, which I find is a really nice feature. You can just launch that straight from the game's details page, and you can get going with that. Related games is quite a nice view. If you're looking at a game and you say, hey, I wonder if there's something similar that I can play. You can actually look at this related games view. This exists within Launchbox. The reason that took a while to launch is because what it's doing in the background is it's essentially loading the database into RAM so that it can dynamically access games that are not just in your library, but also in the games database that aren't in your library. But of course, once you load that, it does it once, and then once you do it again, it's instant. So I can see here, while Tetris Attack had some other variations, you can look at similar games. Yeah, so recommended games is kind of looking at things that you think you might enjoy based on the publisher, the developer, the type of game. Similar games, obviously I can see what other type of games are similar to Tetris Attack. So Tetris 2, Kobe's Dream Course, yeah, a little bit different, but still a fantastic game. And then, of course, it's got possible ports as well. This is nice. It's like, well, an example that we had previously of going through all the ports of... I can't remember what game it was. Not Doom, but you could say, hey, I've completed this one. Let's go see what other ports of Tetris Attack there are. We've got one on the Game Boy. And I can actually jump straight over to that game. This is not in my library, so it's actually taking me to the games database entry. But if it was in my library, it would actually take me straight to that game. Yeah, I don't have any recommendations that are actually in my library. Misc, that was it. So you could go here and you can see all of the ports of Misc, and you could slowly start making your way through those. Okay, this is an interesting question, which says, for some games you have themed videos instead of an in-game footage, which would look nice being played in full screen. Is there a way to determine if the video in question is such a video and play it automatically in full screen instead? So that is a really good question, because what I didn't cover in the beginning is when you import videos in Launchbox, there are actually two types. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but basically there's something called a video snap, and I think the other one is called like video gameplay. The video snap category is intended to be that they're specific videos that are designed to sort of highlight not just. Let me give you an example. Let's go to Super Nintendo. I know I have one for Aladdin here. Let's change this back. Oh, sorry, it's I've got the Mega Drive version, of course. Go to where is it? We're going to use our trusty search function. There it is. This one here. So this is what we call a video snap. You'll see how it's a video that's been specifically made that includes some gameplay, but also has some nice artwork and things like that. And of course, not every game will have both of those. Some people really prefer to use video snaps because obviously they're more visually appealing, whereas some people prefer to just the sort of gameplay. So when you're downloading videos, that's the difference between the two. You can specify, I believe you can specify which one takes priority in terms of what is played. So I think mine is set to prioritize the video snap over the gameplay. And of course, if it doesn't have a snap, it will just fall back to gameplay, like this one here does not have a video snap. It's just got that gameplay. The final part of that question, which is to play the video in full screen, that is entirely dependent on the theme that you're using. So the themes dictate sort of, the location of the video and how it plays. A lot of the themes are built to sort of highlight those videos front and center, but this one specifically, there isn't a way that you can force it to do that. There is an option here that says, I think there's one here that says, there we go, view video full screen, but that's not by default. That is an option that you choose to actually go and do that. And whoever said Bubble Bobble was such a great game, you are absolutely right. Bubble Bobble is a fantastic game. And fantastic. Glad to hear that the related games feature is useful and being used. Fantastic. So I hope that answered the question. If not, please let me know. We're going to continue looking at the game's details page here. Now, I've got a lot of options here, and I don't actually use all of them. So, for example, I personally don't use NetPlay in RetroArch. So you can actually turn off some of these options. So to do that, we're going to go to Options. We're going to go to, I remember where it is. I believe it is the Game menu. And then you've got a whole bunch of toggles for the various options that show up in that view. So what I want to turn off is I don't need RetroArch NetPlay. Everything else I kind of want to keep on here. But you could, of course, narrow this down all the way to just like play the game. In fact, you can even turn that off if you really don't want to play the game. Maybe you want to turn that off because you want to sort of force it to launch with something else. Okay. Go back to... use a random game here. Astro Boy for the Game Boy Advance. So now you can see my NetPlay options for RetroArch are no longer in this view. But everything else I can access. What else have we got here? We've got the achievements overlay. If this game has retro achievements, you can easily access them from here. Related games we looked at. Oops. Ooh, here's another good one. Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. I can look at my images in full screen from here. There we go. All of the nice artwork that I've got here. Like we said, we've got the 3D model that can be spun around with your controller. We can actually look at the video in full screen if I want to do that. This is actually, I like these options here, which is you can very quickly mark games as things like favorites or hidden or broken. Sorry, not hidden. Oh no, yes, hidden is there. So these are the checkbox fields in Launchbox, which is like if a game is hidden, if it's completed, if it's favorite, you can actually do that very quickly from here. You can also add games specifically to a playlist. This is very, very helpful. If you've just finished playing a game, maybe you maintain a playlist of like, favorite games, for example, that all games that meet a specific criteria. You can actually add them directly to a playlist in Big Box, and you can even create a new playlist directly from this view as well. I can very quickly, let's say I'm playing it and there's actually an issue with this game, I can mark it as broken, come back to that later. You'll notice that favorite games will actually be highlighted with a little heart icon. So if I go to Game Boy Advance, for example, when I'm in a box view, so if I'm looking at wall view 2, for example, you can see, so Tactics was a favorite game. It's got that little heart icon in the corner. I actually use this as a way to denote games that I've completed. It's just a personal preference. It means that I can very quickly see at a glance when I'm looking through boxes, which of the games have I actually completed, and then I can actually go through and choose ones I haven't. Of course, there is the completed field as well. I actually use that to denote more like sort of 100% completion, whereas I'll mark a game as favorite when I've sort of just beaten the main story. So just a personal little preference of mine. And yes, in answer to the theme question, of course, there are many, many themes that will sort of go full screen, give you more customization. Give you a specific console theme as well. Yeah, we're actually going to cover that one, I think, later on as well. So we are getting there. Please let us know if you have any questions so far. I know we're spending a lot of time on like, how do I view this? But of course, we realize that people like to use Big Box in different ways. And so it's really powerful in terms of how you display that information and how you navigate through games. We're going to quickly touch on music. So I'm going to actually turn my sound back on. So if you go to Options and under Sound, this is something I didn't realize existed until yesterday, which is you have different sound packs. And that is referring to the sort of bleeps and bloops that you hear when you're navigating through the menus. So I could change that out. Let's change, let's say Sci-Fi 5, for example. And now it's got a bit more of a sort of softer tone. Different sort of sound effects for navigating through Big Box. You can, of course, turn those off completely. If I was to go to Sound, you could say, well, actually, navigation sounds, which is that little click when I move up and down, I can actually just turn that off. And there we go. It's a bit quieter, but it's still going to, when I sort of select something, it's still going to play a sound. When I go back, it's still going to play a sound. So a lot of this is pretty self-explanatory. The one thing I am going to show you is you can download music alongside games. Now, my library is set up with videos, so it's going to prioritize the video over the music. So the sound is coming from the video. But if I was to go into the options here and sound, you have a couple of options here. So for example, prioritize soundtrack music over video audio can be quite nice. So instead of playing the video's sound, it's now going to play the music file that I have downloaded. I think that's when yeah, here we go. So you see in the bottom right, a little toast popped out with the song that I'm playing. You can actually turn that notification off, but what that does is it basically shows you what song is playing. So if you have a whole bunch of songs, you can shuffle between them. Yeah, you see how that toast shows up to show me which song is playing. Let's see when that starts. So not all of these games will have music, but this one does. So it says, hey, this is the song that's playing. But if I don't want to have that song notification, there is an option. I think someone asked this in Discord, actually, and I didn't get around to answering it. It's this option here, which is enable music on-screen display. That is going to get rid of the little notification. And now it's simply going to play that audio. It's just not going to show you which song it's playing. Oh, thank you. Someone says you can't hear the audio very well. Let me turn that up a little bit. How's that sounding? Is that a little bit better, or it needs to go a little bit louder? I realize the quality of this audio is not going to be great, but as long as you can hear something. A very good question here about, is it possible to have one song playing for your entire big box instance? Like the, of course, classic Wii Shop channel. That is a very good question. I'm not 100% sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if you could do that with a specific theme. Don't quote me on that, but I imagine you may be able to do something there with the theme, because the theme overrides a lot of the sort of default settings. So I don't believe in the default theme there is an option for that, but it may be possible with a custom theme. And good. Audio sounding a bit better. I've just muted it temporarily for now, but so of course if I was to turn it back on, there we go. We've got my lovely audio there. Ah, good old Tetris Attack music. Okay. All right, any questions so far? How are we all doing? Let us know if this is useful stuff. We're going to dive into theming a little bit. And of course, for those who joined late or have just joined, don't forget we've got a license giveaway that will be happening a little bit later on in the stream as well. I'm just going to pop these options back on. I prefer to use the video audio. Oh, background music. Where do I find that, Farron? Is that something I can find? Oh, here we go. Enable background music. I haven't used this myself. Where do we? Where does it pull those files from then? If I turn this on. There we go. See, I always learn fun things on these streams as well. So it looks like that is possible. I'm not 100% sure where it pulls this music from, but I imagine there is a location that you can put that in, and then that is where this would do. And of course, shuffle background music, I'm assuming that's so that you can have multiple different background tracks. But very cool. Did not realize that. Okay, so before we jump into themes, we're going to look at one last thing. Oh, okay. Drop your files into Launchbox Music background. Okay, so there's a specific location where you can drop that. Actually, now I really want to go and put the Wii shop channel background music into my instance. But there you go. So, I personally really love the platform categories view. The reason for that is not only do you have access to the platforms themselves, but you can integrate playlists into the platform categories view. So, for example, here I've got my various platform categories, but I've also got some playlists that I've created. I've got a favorites playlist. I've got an inspiration playlist, which is showing me games based on specific ratings. I have a recently added playlist, and I have some backlog playlists that I've created. However, you may actually want to tidy up some of the things that are in here. So, for example, I have a platform for mobile, some mobile games. So, Sonic Dream Team on Apple Arcade, great game, but of course, I can't really play it in Big Box. And so, what we're going to do is we're going to tidy up some of these platform categories. So, I'm going to switch back to desktop mode. I'm going to show you how to do that. Load up Launchbox. And let's go to platform categories. So this is a really, really useful feature, which is you can choose specific platforms and specific sections within... Is it sections or... Sorry, you can choose specific playlists, platforms, and categories to all be hidden within Big Box, but you want them to show up in Launchbox. So for example, I have a mobile platform here, which is Sonic Dream Team. Of course, I like to keep track of this game, but I can't actually play it in Launchbox because this is a phone game. If you edit that platform, you have this option called Hide in Big Box. Notice how it says does not hide game. And so all this does is it hides that platform from the platform categories view. But if you was to search for that game, or if you had a playlist that contained that game would still show up. If you wanted that game to be hidden in Big Box, then you would leverage the hidden field. We're going to show you how to do that later on. But I'm going to hide this. I don't want to see the mobile platform in Big Box, but I still obviously want to see it in Launchbox. Likewise, for example, I have this sorting category here. And I use this to track things like, missing ROMs, no achievements, saves, games with save backups. This is more of like a, metadata management type playlist. I would use this in Launchbox, but I wouldn't use it in Big Box. So again, I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to edit, and I'm going to go hide in Big Box. It's going to hide that category and all of the playlists under that category inside of Big Box. Inspiration, recently added, backlog. I'm going to keep all of these because I like them showing up in Big Box. Same with favorites as well. But you can literally go in, and anytime you see this option, which is hide in Big Box, that means that you can hide that view inside of Big Box. So we have a question that says, can you add pictures, say for example, for your playlist, or does it have to be done in Launchbox? Yeah, well, it's like you read my mind, because that is exactly what we're about to do next. So you'll notice that our platforms have these nice sort of icons with them. So computers, consoles, each of the consoles themselves have their own little image. And if I was to edit this platform, that is where this a platform can have some images associated with it. So it can have a banner, it can have a clear logo, and that is what is used within Big Box. But of course, custom playlists that I've created, they don't have that by default. So for example, recently added doesn't have any media, and so in Big Box, it's just going to show text. Now, a lot of themes do utilize custom images for sort of certain playlists, and you can go and add your own. So all you have to do, so I'm going to add a nice image for this recently added playlist. So if I go to edit, you can see there are actually no images. Now, our forum is a really great place to find some of these. You can search for sort of banners or clear logos under the download section. I'm going to do a quick search because I want to do Launchbox. I think it's called banner playlist images. Here's a quick example. Or actually, let's go through the forum. Remember where it is. Here we go. Playlists. Playlist and playlist media. Playlist banners. That's what I want. So you can grab some media here. I've actually downloaded one. I can never remember where to find it now. But I have on disk, I have some lovely playlist images that I've downloaded. So, for example, under favorites, got this nice banner image here under last played. But what I want is, I've got one for all games. I realize this is not a great example, but I'm going to add an image here. We're going to do last played. I realize this is recently added, but we'll just roll with it. Okay. Okay, let's hit OK. Let me just have a quick look. So, okay, so that wasn't quite what you were looking for. So pictures to display an icon or even a theme. So what I should say is every theme in Big Box is able to access the different sort of image types. So within a sort of playlist or a section, we have these image categories, much like you would have for a game. So it really depends on the theme that you're using and how it accesses those image types. The default theme in Big Box, for example, it utilizes clear logos and banners to denote those images. So let's take a platform here. So the default theme uses a banner image, which is this one, and then it uses a clear logo to denote what's in that sort of vertical wheel view. And yes, that's a good point there about some themes don't utilize all of the image types. Some do. Some use only certain ones. Others don't. So it's hard to give a definitive answer because it really depends on the theme that you're using. But the idea is that themes will use the images that are associated with it, much like it uses the images associated for games. It can use the images associated for categories and playlists as well. Okay. Now, before we jump back into Big Box, what we're also going to do is, under Super Nintendo, I have a playlist that I've embedded here. This is why I said I like platform categories, because you can embed playlists underneath the individual platforms themselves. I've got Japanese exclusive games, Magical Drop 2, fantastic puzzle game, but only released in Japan. Now, the thing with Big Box is, you've probably noticed, if I was to go to that platform in Big Box, it does it in sort of a tree structure. So it's only going to show you, if I was to go into Super Nintendo, it's going to then show you the option for Japanese exclusive games, which is the playlist that I've created, but it's not going to allow me to access all of my other games. And so in this use case, what you can do is you can utilize the auto-generate child playlists feature. So we're going to have a look at this. So this generates child playlists underneath each platform. And so because of the way the Big Box works, it goes through in sort of chronological order. You can add, if you have playlists underneath the platform, it's highly recommended to use this so that you can have access to other types of games as well. So all games, this is recommended for Big Box. That's so that that example I just gave. But you can add things like favorites, genres, and play modes. I'm going to use all of these. It's pretty self-explanatory. It sort of recommends against using these, I imagine, because it's a little bit intensive. But we're going to hit OK. And now, we've got a lot. So we've got all of my games, we've got favorites, we've got various genres, we've got play types like cooperative, we've got multiplayer platform. If you want to delete these playlists, you can actually go back into the auto-generate child playlist and literally just turn this off. Whoops. Here we go. Remove all existing auto-generated playlists. Let's turn that off. That's going to remove them. Because what I want to do is do that again, and I want it to include in a subcategory. We'll see what that looks like. Let's do that again. So now I have all games, favorites, and then under that I have genres, categorize those nicely, and then I've got play modes. That's a little bit more organized, that's what I want, and then I've got my other playlist as well. So you may have to do that for your platforms, but of course once you do it once, you don't have to do it again. And it is personal preference. I personally just have the individual playlists themselves, and then what you could do is I could say, well, I actually don't need this in Big Box, I'm just going to hide it. And then, of course, it's just going to show all of the games in that platform. Okay. So let's go back into... Oh, no, there's one more thing we're going to do before we go back into Big Box, which is platform videos. If you go to download and platform playlist category theme videos, we're going to see what these are back in Big Box. But what this is basically, it's those nice kind of videos that are used by some of the themes so that when you're looking through the platform, it shows you a nice, nicely made video for that specific platform. Now, I already have a bunch of these downloaded. I'm missing the master system, so it's highlighted that one here. But what I want to do is I want them all to be the same. So from the same sort of creator. So I like the colorful Platform videos, I'm going to select that. So now it's going to go and add the colorful HD video to all of my platforms. I'm going to select all. Hit OK. And we'll show you exactly what this looks like back in Big Box. And yes, you can technically create endless categories of playlists in the platform categories view. Is there a website we can find more theme videos from? That's a very good question. Let's see if it's in the forums. This is where it is most likely to be. Here we go. Playlist theme videos, 142. So, Launchbox, I might get this wrong, but I believe we have certain playlist and sort of platform videos that I can access directly from within Launchbox, but I'm pretty sure you can actually download additional ones on top of that. These are ones that we've sort of, vetted and, they work well with our sort of default themes, so you can access them from within Launchbox, but I'm pretty sure if you was to go and download additional ones, you could use those as well. So here we go. These are really great use cases because I see a lot of people use them for specific playlists. So if you have a playlist that's specifically for like Animal Crossing games, for example, Dragon Ball Z, one looks cool, a Wario themed playlist video, that could be quite fun. So yes, you absolutely can add additional playlist or platform videos. And the website to use is the forum. Under downloads, and then you've got the various sections on the right. Just scroll down to playlist theme videos. Okay, so we're ready to jump back into Big Box. That. And now we are ready to jump into themes. This is the main selling point of Big Box, and where it can potentially get a bit complicated, but I'm going to show you how straightforward it can be to just get a nice theme up and running. So I'm going to go to my platforms view. Now, as I'm scrolling through my platforms, you'll see how I now have these unified sort of colorful videos on the right here. And those are the ones that I just downloaded. So this is what we call, I believe it's the platform theme video. And themes utilize this in different ways. So if you go to manage themes, this is where we're going to start changing out our themes. Now, within Big Box, there are certain themes that you have access to, but this is not the full extent of the themes that are out there. These are themes that have been vetted, have sort of met the performance standards of ones that we can guarantee will work well with Big Box. But of course, you can go and download a theme off the forum and manually install that as well. So again, under downloads, under Big Box, custom themes, this is where the bulk of sort of submissions come from. There's nearly 250 custom Big Box themes, whereas within Big Box itself, there are about sort of 25 sort of, popular sort of vetted themes. So we're going to show you both options. I'm just going to go to, I have a couple of themes installed. I have some other themes that are available. I'm just going to go here, and it will give you a nice little preview of the theme itself. So you can see what it looks like. We've got some really popular and fantastic submissions here. And yes, that's right. Reflected in the number of themes available for Big Box versus Launchbox. So yes, Launchbox, and that's this whole other conversation, which is Launchbox can be themed. But there are definitely much fewer compared to the themes for Big Box, because Big Box is where it really benefits from that sort of visual aspect, whereas Launchbox is more for sort of straightforward sort of managing metadata, things like that. So any particular favorites? If anyone has a favorite theme, let me know. We'll go ahead and install it. Let's just take Retro Fresh, for example, and you can literally just hit install. So it downloads the latest theme, and then it says it was installed. Now, that doesn't mean that it's been applied. What you'll want to do is you'll want to go to apply as main theme. I'm going to use this one called Coverbox. It's already installed. So for example, you can uninstall it from here. You can apply it as the main theme. You can apply it to specific sections. We'll show you that a little bit later on, but I'm just going to go and apply it as the main theme here. Okay. Yep, colorful and unified. Those are two very popular ones. Let's see if those are there. Let's get those installed. Colorful. Let's install colorful. This is quite a beefy one. So I should say, themes can they can come with different sort of assets. So a very light theme may take the existing media that's in Big Box and it will simply display it in a different way. Whereas some themes will actually come with their own media. So they might come with their own sort of videos, all sorts of media used to sort of elevate that theme. So that's why the sizes can be different. That's why this one is taking a while, whereas the other one is relatively quick because it's just using the existing media within my instance. Yep, console themes. We've got another theme which we're going to use as well. So this is downloading themes from within Big Box, but like I said, if you were to go to the forum and go to custom themes, you can actually download a theme and install it manually as well. I'm going to take one called, a really popular one called there we go, mini consoles. This one's really nice. It's meant to sort of represent some of the NES Classic, the SNES Mini views. I've already got these installed, but the idea is you download them and you literally just drop them into the themes directory. So I can see I've got a folder for each of my themes. So if it doesn't exist within the sort of Big Box theme manager, you can actually just go and drop a theme in here and then you'll have access to it as you do with all of the other themes. So if I look at what's installed, we've got quite a nice selection here. We've got Banner Box, Colorful, Cover Box, Mini Consoles. This is the one that I downloaded off the forum. And then, of course, I've got these other ones here as well. Okay, so we've got our themes ready. We're going to go ahead and apply one. So you can apply it directly from here. Just apply as main theme. You can, of course, you don't have to go there every time under options and views. You can change the theme here. So I can change it as cover box. But let's see what that looks like. Now, we get this question a lot. The first thing is, I'm going to go to my Game Discovery Center. And people go, well, what's going on? This looks exactly the same. Why has this not got a theme? And that is a very good question, which is themes don't necessarily cover every single section of Big Box. The Game Discovery Center is relatively new, which means that a lot of the popular themes have not been updated to incorporate the Game Discovery Center. You absolutely can do that, but as of right now, because this is a much newer section, if a sort of theme does not exist for that section, it's just going to revert to the default. If I was to go to platforms, for example, this is where the theme has been built for. So this is cover box. It's showing me all of my platforms. But the Game Discovery Center kind of looks like the default because there is, I don't believe there are actually any themes that specifically sort of tweak the Game Discovery Center as of right now. And that can apply for all sorts of sections. So there are some themes that just touch the sort of platform categories view, whereas there are some themes that go into the actual platforms themselves. So Coverbox here, for example, has a custom theme for sort of looking at the various platforms. But if I go into that platform, it's got a specific theme for each of those platforms, which is really nice. This is why a lot of people love this theme. It's kind of designed to look at the individual platform. Very, very nice. Let's go to something like Game Boy. And there we go. So you can see each of these is different. Now, back when I was making my keyboard shortcuts, you can switch out themes on the fly. So I'm going to use my theme shortcut, and I'm going to say, I want to change this to something like Banner Box, for example. And there we go. I've literally switched the theme on the fly, so you can very quickly see what these different themes are. So this one's very cool. A nice sort of vertical style list of themes. That's a bad example. I've got one game. Let's take the N64 again. There we go. So this one is looking a little bit different. It's got a different game details view here. We have a question that says, what's the quickest way to navigate from Discover home screen to the themed home screen? Is there a way to default startup to the themed home screen? Absolutely. So we did cover this previously. The way you do that is if you go to Options and under Views, you have the default startup view. This is where you change what view you want to use when you launch a big box. So right now I'm using the Game Discovery Center. If you want to quickly jump between them, like I said, you want to set hotkeys for those different sections. So you can set hotkeys for the Game Discovery Center. You can set it for the platform categories. So I've set it to 1, 2, 3, 4 on my keyboard, so I can very quickly jump between the Discovery Center. I can jump between my platforms, or I could jump between a sort of a genre list and things like that. So that's what I would recommend. Fantastic. So you'll see here, Bannerbox, for example, has themed this view here as well. Whereas some themes can, you could theme the options view if you really wanted to, but not all of them do. So wherever the theme doesn't sort of cover that section, it just defaults back to the default theme. And that's why we sometimes get questions of, I've applied this theme, but it doesn't seem to have worked. And in most cases, it actually has worked. It's just that the theme doesn't touch that specific section that you're looking at. So the Game Discovery Center is a good example of that. So back in platforms, I'm looking at Bannerbox here. I'm going to bring up my theme shortcut. I'm going to change it to Mini Consoles. I really like this one. This is the one we manually downloaded. And this one is very nice. So I've got my individual consoles here. Let's go to Super Nintendo. This represents the... So what I should say is, you know how we were looking at various views within Big Box as well? Themes can have their own views as well. So, for example, this one, let's see which one it's using. And there we go. This is a good example. So it says this theme does not actually support this view. So it says the supported views is horizontal wheel 1, and let's try wall view 2 then. There we go. That's looking very, very nice. So think of it like this. You have the overall theme within Big Box, and each theme has access to different views. But the views themselves can be themed in different ways. So some themes may support multiple views, some may not, some may just use one, some may support all of them. So definitely read up on the theme description on the website. They will generally tell you kind of which views they intend you to use and which ones are supported. It's very easy to just quickly flip between them, and you can, of course, easily see the results. But I really like this one. Let's go back. Let's take GameCube, for example. So this is a very, very nice theme. And here we go. I really like this list where it's that kind of mini console scrolling through. If I was to choose a game. There we go. So it's all just different ways of displaying the same games, the same information, potentially using different bits of media. But you can actually get very, very powerful. We're not going to go into too much detail because you can get really specific and you can theme specific platforms with specific themes, but other platforms will use a different theme. We're going to save that for another day just because it can get pretty complicated, but just know that the extent at which you can theme Big Box is vast and definitely is where a lot of the functionality and sort of value comes. Any other themes we should look at? What were the suggestions we had? What were they? Let's see. Colorful. Let's see. Colorful. I actually haven't used colorful. Ooh, that is colorful. That's very nice. What does that look like for the platform? Yeah, so this is what I was saying is you can actually theme the platforms and the games views differently. So this is not actually using colorful. Let's change that to use colorful. There we go. It's looking very nice. Ooh, I do like that. Very, very cool. Game Boy Advance. You want a nice, sleek look. What other views do we have supported here? Let's see. Yeah, so I think this one is... does it support vertical wheel 1? Using the same one. Text with details. Yeah, but that's not as nice. Stick with vertical wheel. Okay, so I know themes can get a little complicated. What I would suggest is if you're new to themes, definitely utilize the manage themes within Big Box. Very, very nice, straightforward way to get started. If you want to venture outside that realm, definitely check out the forums under the download section. You can look at the Big Box custom themes, and it's just as simple as downloading it and dropping it into this directory here, and then you can access it in the same way as you would any other theme. Have we tried Coverbox? Let's do that now, shall we? So I'm going to go to options. I want to change it. Because I changed the theme for specific platforms, I just wanted to go and change it for everything. I want to go to views. And let's do... Oh, we did do Coverbox. Yes, that's what we were looking at originally. But yes, a good one, Coverbox. I do very much like this one. Like I said, we're not going to go into details, but you will notice there is a theme-specific options here. All I would say on this for now is that a theme can essentially override specific settings from the default, and that is what this is for. If you go to options and under... So you know how I gave that example of tidying up the game's details page by saying, I don't want to see the Rewatch netplay options. So I went to game startup. No, I'm sorry, game menu. And under show Rewatch netplay, I turned this off so that I could make that a bit tidier. Certain themes, you can override those functions, and certain theme developers will actually force those options because that's how their theme functions. This is where you essentially would edit that. I'm not going to go too much into detail on that, but just so you know, that's what that is. Fantastic. Vision is my favorite theme for Big Box. Hey, let's see if that one's there, shall we? I'm always up for finding some new ones. If it's in here or if it's one. Here we go, Vision. Ooh, that looks nice. Let's check it out. There we go. Go ahead and apply as main theme. Go back to platforms. That is nice. Look at that. Ooh, I do like that. I like how it's using the backgrounds there. Looking good, looking good. I mean, we could spend all day going through Big Box themes because there are just some absolutely incredible creations by the community here. Really, really nice. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Let's see, does it support any other views? No, so it's using the same one, which is cool. You will find, because themes are designed in a very specific way, some themes don't support multiple views, and that's fine. But just be aware of that's why it's not changing when I actually jump between those two views. Right, we've got one more thing to look at. Well, a few more things actually, and then we're going to do our license giveaway. So that is coming up. If anyone is in the runnings for a license, we shall do that soon. I'm just going to jump back to... let's stick with Coverbox. Let's change it up. Because one thing that we have is startup and pause themes. Let's go to Super Nintendo. Cool Spot. This is a game I love to show off on the stream. A good old classic. Also on the Sega Genesis with some banging music back in the day of branded video games where they were at peak. So if I was to go and play this game, you see how it gets that screen that says now loading? That's what we call the startup, the startup screen, or the startup view, I guess. And then if you were to access the pause screen, so there is a shortcut for this as well. This is what we call the pause screen. Now, the pause screen is meant to be used for, pausing your emulation, but also access to various functions like save states, achievements. You can actually look at the manual directly from the pause screen, which is really nice. You can save states, reset the game, and then of course resume the game as well. You can go to look at the achievements for the game. So a very quick way of actually quickly accessing various information from within Big Box, again, using a controller. Yep, sounds like there's lots of fans of Coverbox in the house. Lots of good backgrounds there. Now, startup themes and pause themes, surprise, surprise, can also be themed. Let's go to our options. Let's go to, you've got manage startup themes and manage pause themes. So let's have a look at those. Let's start with the startup theme. So again, the same process applies. There are certain ones that you can access within Big Box, but you can of course go and download additional ones off the forum. But let's have a look at what we've got here. So again, any preferences for any of these startup themes? I think Big Fade is quite nice. That gives you a sort of nice intro screen. Big Logo, if you like things pretty straightforward, it just gives you that logo front and center. Let's go ahead and install Big Logo. Do we have any other shouts for a good, or recommendations for a good startup theme? Stage Box by our wonderful Farron. That one's looking good. I know the Neon Deluxe startup themes are pretty popular. But let's stick with Big Logo for now. And let's go over to our pause theme. There's a really nice pause theme that I like, which is, there's not that many, but it's this one here, which is Pause Shift. I really like this one. Let's install this one. So I'm going to apply this as my pause theme. I think I forgot to apply the startup theme. Let's do that. I'm going to use Big Logo as startup theme. There we go. Now, let's see. I may need to restart Launchbox for this big effect. Let's just see if that works. Yes. Okay. Let's quickly reboot. Actually, while we're out of Big Box, we are going to show you something cool. Now, I didn't realize you could do this. Hands up here who knows about additional documents. This is a very cool feature that works really nicely with pause screens. So I'm going to cover something here. We all know that we have manuals for games. You can download the manual and you can access that. Let's show badges and let's turn on documents so I can see which games have a manual. I can actually right click and I can go to media and I can go to view the manual. Now I can do that in Big Box as well. But what I do have, I have downloaded some strategy guides. Good old strategy guides. Let's have a look at the Sonic Advance official guide. Here we go. Back in the good old days of strategy guides. Now, I really love these. These are just fantastic to look through. And especially for older games like this, a perfect example is Sonic Advance 2, because finding all of the special stage rings is a right pain in the behind. And this good old strategy guide shows me exactly where those are. Old school. Who wants to Google or YouTube everything when you can refer to the good old strategy guide? And that is exactly what we're going to do. And fantastic. Sounds like some folks are already on it, already adding guides, maps, things like that. Yep, those were the days. Strategy guides from an electronics boutique. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a game and we're going to add a strategy guide. We're going to take... we are going to take Sonic Advance 2, or let's take Sonic Advance. We'll take the first one. The way you add additional documents is through the additional apps. So we're going to go to additional apps. We're going to add an application and we're going to say view strategy guide. We are going to point to the document, which is here, Sonic Advance official strategy guide. And that's all we need to do. We're going to hit OK. And now within Launchbox, if you right click and go to media, you have this additional documents section and view strategy guide. And there we go. That's very cool. Good old high quality strategy guide with all of the maps showing me the location of all of the hidden boxes. So let's go back into Big Box and we'll actually see what that looks like. Yep, Virtua Fighter 5. Yep, there are some good fighting games are a good example for strategy guides because they outline all of the combos and moves. In fact, I think I've got one for DOA 2, Dead or Alive 2, in here as well, which we should add as well. But let's take our game. Let's search for Sonic Advance. Sonic Advance or Sonic Advance 2. So under additional documents, I've got the strategy guide. But where this really comes into play is where we're actually playing the game. So now you can see I've got that nice new startup screen, which was the big logo. That's taken effect. It's got the nice logo there. And let's get into the game. Now, I have my pause screen mapped to a controller input. So as I was saying previously, you can do a controller combination. So I actually have my pause screen mapped to, I click in the right stick and then I press down on the D-pad. And what that does is it brings up this pause menu. And now I've got that nice new pause theme, which I just installed. But I also have view strategy guide because it's showing the additional document. So I'm going to click on that. And it's going to boot that up. There we go. I even have commands for zooming in and zooming out. So as we get all the way down to the maps, for example. So here we go. So let's say, for example, Neo Green Hill Zone 1. So let's exit out of that. Let's resume game. And there we go. We'll just pick Sonic. We are in Neo Green Hill Zone 1. And I'm thinking, hey, I'm a little bit stuck here. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to pull up my good old strategy guide. Now, annoyingly, I don't think it remembers my location, although it would be nice if it did do that. But here we go. We are cheating old school by looking at all of the location of the boxes. Questionable example, but you can see where this is going. It can be very fun if you want to add a bunch of, old school maps, guides, documents, things like that. These can be very easily accessed from the pause menu, of course, along with the original manual and things like that. And yes, that's a very good question here. So right now we have 2 fields for YouTube and Wikipedia. We want to add more links. So additional links. So essentially additional resources that are relevant to that game specifically. We have had that request quite a lot. And it would be nice to add your own link. We are sort of considering how we do that because we, of course, have to standardize that across the database. Are there certain links that we would want to have for every game, or do we have that as a sort of custom field where you can add your own links and have it work like that? But yeah, that's a very good request and would be very nice. In terms of when you're saying what is the best way to add this, so right now custom fields obviously don't support that sort of clickable link type thing. So you could add a link as a custom field, but it's not really doing anything other than just being a reference. There isn't a great workaround, unfortunately, other than just replacing those links. So if you don't use like the Wikipedia link, for example, you could replace it with something else. But of course, I think a better implementation needs to be done to support that. Alrighty. Exit that. So we're going to very quickly have a look at attract mode, and then we are going to do our lovely license giveaway. So attract mode, the use case for attract mode is mostly for arcade cabinets or builds where big box is permanently on. So although we're looking at it on a PC here, a lot of people use big box in an arcade build, and that's because it's specifically designed to be, on. You have a limited controller set to navigate. And attract mode, rather than just sitting on a single screen like this, what attract mode will do is it will cycle through random games and it will show off all of that media that you've got. Now, a lot of themes leverage attract mode very well, so that it's supposed to replicate that arcade style where you leave it on and it starts playing a demo of the game, for example. It runs through, and it's just something to visually have that is sort of constantly changing while your arcade cabinet is built. So attract mode is pretty straightforward. Under options and under attract mode, you have the option to turn it on, and essentially you configure what you want it to do. So do you want it to switch between different platforms, or do you want it to stick within a single platform? Some timings of how it does that. And I am going to set a keyboard shortcut for attract mode so that I can start it at any point. I think I already have set it to A. There's a lot of options in here. Whizzing through them. There we go. Okay, it's already set. So what that will do is let's go into a specific platform. Let's go into Sega Genesis. And then we are going to hit. And now it's cycling through my games, and it's going to land on one. It's going to sit there for a little while, and it's going to play that video. So there we go. It'll land on that one. It'll cycle through that, and then it's going to go and cycle through another game. So I won't dive too deep into it because the options to configure it are pretty self-explanatory, but the idea is that it allows you to cycle through different games and also cycle through different platforms as well. Right now, it's just cycling through Sega Genesis, but you can set it to sort of jump between different platforms. And a lot of the themes are set up to really leverage attract mode, where it's that sort of full screen, media is front and center, and it just cycles through that. Okay. Alrighty. Well, I think we are ready to do our license giveaway. So while we let some lovely Sega Genesis games cycle in the background. So just to let folks know how this works, if you have a license for both Windows and Android, unfortunately, please don't enter this one just because we can't obviously give you another one. This is for folks who don't own a license. I should say if you don't own one or the other. So if you have a Windows license but you don't have an Android, please feel free to enter this because we can give you the other platform. But if you have both, of course, please don't enter this because we won't be able to give one to you. The way this will work, and let me just check that it's all set up, is you just need to post something in the chat and we will pull the winner in a second. What you need to post is !Launchbox. I've just popped it in the chat. So anyone who would like to enter, just post that message into the chat box, which is !Launchbox. And yes, it is a lifetime license. There we go. Got some nice entries there. What if I want to win another one and just hoard licenses? Well, that is a very good question. But unfortunately, we cannot. The way the system works is it checks the email address and then so we can send it out if there isn't a license there. But fantastic. We've got quite a few entries there, which is looking good. It's all looking good on my side. So we're going to let that run for a little bit while we finish off the rest of the stream, and then we will pull the winner towards the end. So again, if you want to be in the runnings, !launchbox in the chat, and we will pull that later on. Just got 2 more things to cover, and then we'll open it up to questions as well. So the final thing we want to look at is a couple of quick options. So under videos, for example, you have the option to use random game videos for missing platform videos. What that means is if you don't have a platform video for specific consoles or sort of PCs, for example, it will just default to a random game video. A lot of these are self-explanatory, so you can use game background videos or platform background videos. You can also change the engine. We actually recommend VLC as the playback engine. If you have issues with that, you can default to Windows Media Player, but VLC is recommended for that. We have a good question here, which is, what if you don't have a lifetime license, but you have a 1-year license? Can you still enter? Let me just double check that. Let me just quickly confirm. Okay, yes. Yes, the answer is yes. So yes, you can. So if you don't have a lifetime license, but you have an existing license, you can still enter because this will be for a lifetime license. So please enter away. Okay. A few other quick options here is marquee screen. This is a very specific option usually for those who have arcade builds. The marquee screen essentially is, the term comes from the arcade cabinet where you have the main game screen, but then you have a sort of smaller screen at the top that usually displays things like the logo. And Big Box is specifically designed to leverage that. So I can't obviously show it off right now, but the way it works is if there is a sort of, I believe it's a banner sort of image type, and marquees is one of those images. If you have those in Launchbox, in Big Box, what you can do is you can display that logo on a second screen. So if you have an arcade build that has a second monitor that you want to use for that, and not even an arcade build, for example, if you just have 2 monitors and you want to display the logo on your second screen while Big Box is scrolling through the first screen, then you absolutely can do that as well. And that's essentially what this is. Not too many options to go through there, but just to let you know that it's there. Going along with the sort of arcade build, you have these various security options. And this only really applies if you want to lock Big Box down in a sort of public setting. So, a lot of people do build arcade cabinets in, bars or sort of cafes, or even within your own home. Maybe you've got kids or other folks who use the build, but you essentially want to limit what they can access or how they can navigate around. That's where all of this comes into play. So there's a whole ton of options that we're not going to go through, but pretty self-explanatory. It basically says, well, maybe I just want them to scroll through games and platforms, but I don't want them to do things like, accessing filters and searches and all that other stuff. You can add things like pins. So if you want to sort of create a sort of pin so that folks can only just play stuff, but if they want to edit or they want to sort of configure Big Box, you have to enter that in first. So pretty self-explanatory, but the use case is more for like, public setting builds or like, kids and parents and things like that. Okay. The final thing we're going to look at is transitions. Pretty self-explanatory, but quite important because transitions can play into the performance. Some transitions are more performant than others, and depending on the sort of spec of the PC that you're using, if you have a whole bunch of very, very heavy transitions, and if the theme uses a whole bunch of heavy transitions, then you may notice some slowdowns. So if you want to try and fix that up, you can adjust and you can adjust transitions for all sorts of things. So, the regular screen transition, but how the games appear on screen, how, the platforms sort of slide in, things like that. Pretty self-explanatory, but this is where you can do that. Fades are obviously the recommended one for the most kind of performance. This is just a library of sort of pre-built transitions. If you really want to go crazy with things like explosions, you absolutely can. But if you wanted to sort of narrow things or sort of keep things a little bit more performant, you could do that from here. And that's where it comes into my last point, which is performance. So we definitely understand that the bigger your build and the more games, the more media you have, it can be demanding on the system. And Big Box certainly can be known to sort of struggle in certain use cases. We always try to sort of look at those individually, and usually it's a combination of what's in the library versus the theme that is being used. Certain themes, although they are absolutely fantastic contributions, the ones that we have in our theme manager, those are ones that have been specifically vetted to be kind of performant, because of course there is the potential to code a theme in a not so optimal way, which could cause Big Box to slow down depending on your the number of games and media that you have. So some quick tips in terms of speeding up Big Box if you do have that. Obviously the theme itself is very, very important. So you can always default back to the regular theme and see if you still have issues there. There are options such as turning off things like 3D models, for example. So it says use 3D models in cover flow views. That gives me the option to kind of spin the box, which is what we were looking at. But if you don't really want to do that, you just want to see the images and you don't need those 3D boxes, you could turn that off. Because of course, adding additional 3D boxes is adding more resources to the system. Again, it should be fine in most cases, but if you have really, really big builds, and I'm looking at 300 games here, whereas I know a lot of our users have 300,000, for example. That is not an uncommon number for games to have in Big Box. The other thing you can do is to change the quality of the images. I believe that is under... Let's see where it is. I think it might be under views. Images, maybe. There we go. So cover flow image quality. Obviously, the higher the quality, the more sort of resources it will use. Again, it should be fine. These are not like huge image files. I have mine set on high, and it's fine. But of course, if you have very sort of high resolution images in your library, or you have just a lot of games and you find that those cover flow views are not as performant as they could be, you could always try lowering this just a little bit just to kind of get back a few of those resources. Things that are particularly resource intensive are attract mode is particularly resource intensive because it's consistently flipping through stuff and having to reload those views. So, if you don't use attract mode, I think there are options to have it sort of kick on after a certain period of time. But if you don't care about that or you don't use it, certainly turn that off, and then it will save you those resources. And the same thing for themes demo. If anyone's used this, it's just a quick way to kind of look at some of the installed themes in your library. It will just basically pick a random theme, and then it will kind of show you which theme that is. It will cycle through it. It's more for sort of like demo purposes, but this, again, it can be quite intensive on the system depending on the theme and what you have in your library. Yeah, so I was close to the number there, so 38K. Yeah, so it's always a nice little competition of... I still it still doesn't. It still shocks me how I thought people couldn't go over 200,000, but apparently you can. And of course, it's the sort of collectionist versus curationist approach of collecting games. One is certainly not right or wrong, but it is interesting. But of course, at its core, Big Box is the more media and games you throw at it, the more it is having to do, depending on the view and the theme that you're using. So it's just something to be aware of. If you have a particularly large library, you may want to be aware of some of these. The other sort of extreme thing you can do is not everyone uses videos, for example. You don't have to have videos for Big Box to look fantastic and sort of function. If you prefer it to be just a sort of very quick kind of way to navigate and look at games for yourself, you can essentially turn off videos, or you don't need to have videos in your library. Videos really come into play when it's more like, showing off the library in a sort of, an arcade build, or maybe you want to show it off to your friends, because let's be honest, this is why we do this, is, you create this lovely library and you can appreciate it, but there's always that nice feeling when others can appreciate it as well, sharing it with friends and family, and that's where the videos really can come into play here. Yes, it's not a competition. We can easily double that. Yes, I realize the build I'm using is very, very small in comparison. 250 games here. My personal build is, I think it's coming up to 3,000 now, and that is very heavily curated. Well, that takes us to, frankly, almost 2 hours. Thank you all for sticking around. I think that covers pretty much most of the use cases within Big Box. Obviously, definitely check out some of Fairend's streams as well, because if you are a developer and you actually want to get into theming Big Box, the possibilities are essentially endless. We didn't even touch on how you can go about creating your own themes. We just talked about how you can use existing themes and how you can sort of tweak what's available to you. But there is a whole other world and a very passionate community of developers who make amazing creations for Big Box. So if you haven't used Big Box before, I hope this has been a nice sort of overview. If you have used it, I hope you've learned some new tips and tricks, some interesting bits that you may not have known about. Big Box really is, for me personally, is the front end that I use on my Legion Go. I will use it, literally to pop open every time I pick it up and scroll through games, find new games, and it's very sort of controller friendly. So that's what I really like about it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull our license winner. So this is your last chance. If anyone hasn't entered yet, just pop into the chat !Launchbox and you will be in the running for a lifetime license of your choice. You can choose Windows or Android. Let me just double check how that's looking. This is nice. We've got quite a few people today, but still not too bad. So the chances of winning are still relatively high. I think all of our entries are here. So I'm going to go ahead and roll this. So on screen in the chat, we should find out who the winner is. We're going to do this in 3, 2, 1. There we go. Lumpy the Mole. Love that name, but fantastic. Congratulations. You are the winner of a lifetime Launchbox license. What I'm going to do, I can find your username here. I will need to just send you a quick message. There you are. All right, just bear with me. I will just need to send you a message, or as a whisper, is what we call it, for all the cool kids. Let's see. I'm having a issue trying to do this. Just bear with me one moment. We will get you sorted. All we'll need from you is your name and your email address, but we're trying to send you a PM here on Twitch, and then you can give us that information. $18 terabytes. No competition, exactly. So what makes up the bulk of those 18 terabytes? Is it sort of newer systems, or I know older PC games can take up a lot of space? Oh, okay. I think I got. All right. So Lumpy the Mod, just let me know if you've received that message, and we can continue this afterwards. You can just let me know that information. All right, but while we wait, this is the end of our stream. Does anyone have any questions or anything they would like to look at? We have a bit of time. We can stick around. Feel free to ask any questions about Big Box. And we hope that you found this helpful. Yes, of course, newer systems are the ones that take up the most space. Yep, Switch, PS3. Ah, the Clone Hero songs. How is that? I was a huge Guitar Hero 3 fan back in the day, but I've always wanted to get into Clone Hero. And I guess that's yeah, they must have a huge library available for that. How do I set up Clone Hero in Big Box? Fantastic question. I mean, I'm sure the folks who have that set up can speak more than I can, but of course, I'm assuming if it's if it's a specific emulator, you can add that into Launchbox, which can then be launched directly from Big Box. All right, lumping them all. I see. Yes, there's a annoying preference on our side that I need to change. But annoyingly, I don't think I can change that. This happened last time as well. Okay, what I might need you to do, if it's all right, if you're in the Discord, you can find me in the announcements channel, which is AstroBob. Can you send me a message on Discord instead, and I'll make sure we get this. Thanks, everyone. Yes, see you in the forums. Now I'm tempted to go and try out some Clone Hero after this. Guitar Hero 3, and I had the DDR game, the Super Mario DDR game on GameCube. That was my, those were my 2 rhythm games. Alrighty, well, thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to hang around for a couple of minutes just to get this license giveaway sorted. But for anyone else, thank you all for coming. We hope this has been a useful stream for you. And don't forget to tune in next week where we'll be doing the same thing again. And you can always find us in Discord and on the forums as well for any big box questions. But thanks for coming. And feel free to stick around or drop off while I just get this. So, Lumpy Mole, can you just confirm if you're on Discord? Can you actually just drop me? Oh, I think you already have. Fantastic. Okay, I see it now. Great. I'm going to follow up on Discord after this and sorted for you. But fantastic. I think we'll close it down then. Thank you very much for coming, everyone. Hope you've had a good day and enjoy the rest of your day, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. And we'll see you next time. Alrighty. Thanks, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your day. Bye-bye.